but he is also a sponsor for just about every event that we do. He has supplied the door prize gift cards for us today, so stick with us to the end, and we'll be doing those drawings. So Jimmy, if you would come off mute and introduce yourself, we'd love to hear about you and what you've got going on.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure to sponsor these events. This one in particular really resonates with me because especially what's going on right now. I'm so dedicated to helping my clients and connecting them with possibilities that are going to help their business. And let me go back. So for me, one critical constraint that I had in the past is that I really had a fear of failure that kept me from asking for help. And this was right after Hurricane Harvey. I had lost the business. And what I'm finding right now is that there's a lot of business owners that are afraid to ask for help. And I want them to let them know that everybody is here for them. And there's a lot of opportunity out there to help them in these times of need. Say, for example, one thing that's coming out, there's going to be an 8-week program for employers through the SBA to get a government loan forgiveness so that they help keep their employees and keep them working. Additionally, like that, I want to let you guys know that a lot of banks are working with clients in order to give them deferments for up to 3 months at the current moment to help alleviate the cash flow. So if you guys, for me, I didn't ask for that when I went through Harvey and lost my business. But if you guys are struggling, I really urge you to reach out and ask your banks. That's your home mortgage, that's your the loans that you have with business banks, and so on and so forth, including your cars. They do have programs that are available right now there to assist you. I am here because you are a part of our growing family. I want to be here to help you also. Anything I can do to connect you to people and the information on that, please feel free to reach out to me, and you guys mean the world to me. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. We're so proud to be partners with you. It's super important to us to have you ride along with us on this journey. I want to let everybody know that I'm monitoring the chat window and the participant window down here, so forgive me if I'm looking down. I'm actually looking at another screen so that we are bringing people in a timely manner. So let's get started if everyone's ready. So can I get a thumbs up either in the participant window or in your video screen? Are you guys ready to get ready? Or ready to get going? Ready to get ready. Okay, cool. Good. So the objectives for today's meeting is really, there are 3 of them that we really want to get across to you guys today. So we want to discover the 80% source of all constraints that are holding you back. We're going to identify the critical constraints limiting your progress. Then we're also going to talk about developing plans to overcome the critical constraints. Now, keeping in mind, this is a topic that Dennis and I would talk to our clients about in a regular environment, but understanding the environment that we're in today, we're really trying to tie back crisis management or crisis leadership to this talk. So on our agenda, we're going to talk about current context crisis management, the definition and theory of constraints. We're going to talk about law of complexity, the cycle of dependency, and the law of self-control. And then we're going to do a little bit of constraint diagnostics.
And as we go forward, it's important. This is all relatively new for many. Many have probably not even used these types of forums. Don't be afraid to experiment. Come off of mute. Like we're not getting much interaction at all. So body language is key, and given these types of talks, these are supposed to be interactive. Don't be afraid to come off mute. If we don't recognize that you raised your hand, just kind of speak up and we'll work with it. But also play with the technology. You can't break it. No, it doesn't matter what button you press on your side, it's not going to interrupt this. And so mess around with the different menus, get used to it, play with backgrounds, because this may be something that we have to use for an extended period of time.
Yeah, the only person that's not allowed to touch buttons, this one.
All right, so should we get going? All right, so in the current context, we are all, as business leaders, business owners, employees, friends, colleagues, family members, we're in essentially a moment of crisis, right? I haven't spoken to one business owner, one leader, one person whose life hasn't actually been turned sideways as a result of the situation that we're in. So there are really three stages in any crisis to manage through, and that's cope, pivot, and execute. On the cope side, that is highly personal, and it's driven by what's up here. It's your mindset, right? And the best example that I think I could give, and I would encourage people to go and look this up and even maybe read the book Good to Great. This is chapter 4, I believe. The Stockdale Paradox. It's Admiral Jim Stockdale. Admiral Jim was taken as a prisoner of war. He stayed in the Hanoi Hilton, and he survived and thrived in it. And he talks a lot about in the Stockdale Paradox, or the paradox that he came up with, is you have to retain an unwavering faith that you're going to make it to the end. Now, that's not blind faith. That's not laissez-faire. That's not it is what it is, or this too shall pass, right? This too shall pass is not a business model. You have to have faith that you'll get to the end. But in parallel with that, you've got to confront the most brutal facts of what's in front of you, the current reality. And he talks a lot about those people who were just purely optimistic and said, you know what, we're going to be out of here by Christmas. Everyone just believe it and it'll happen. But what they weren't balancing was the reality of their situation. And Christmas probably wasn't going to happen, and it wasn't going to happen. And so they turned a blind eye to the facts that were in front of them. The other people that didn't do very well and didn't make it out were those people who were amazingly pessimistic, doom and gloom every day, right? And that's easy to do. We are looking at the news. If you sit and you watch the news, it's very, very easy to fall into a state of complete pessimism. So it's that balance between the two. You're going to get through this, and in order to do it, you're going to have to face some brutal facts, right? So that's step one. Step two, once you've gotten through the cope stage, is the pivot stage, right? Pivoting is underpinned by clarity about who you are, where you are in your business versus where you want to be, right? This is looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, your communication styles. Where are the gaps in your knowledge? Where can you get help from, right? But understanding all of that about who you are, and then where you are versus where you want to be, right? Your business today versus your business tomorrow. There are some who, a co-op as an example, a really good example, their business yesterday was making sure that their organic vegetables sitting in a location that were healthy and were available to the public who wanted to sign up. They're now a logistics company, right? That's something that they've had to adapt to. That's a pivot. Now, because they fall into the essential category, they haven't stopped completely, but the business that they were in today is slightly different than the business they're in tomorrow. And it may be very different by the time this is all over, right? So that clarity that you achieve morphs into a strategy that acknowledges and addresses the gap. There are businesses and companies out there right now that had no idea that they had the gaps that they have. You think about some of the global service providers that operate in multiple countries. They had business continuity plans, sorta, but a gap was, once we declare a business continuity or an event that's global or more so than regional, how are people supposed to get in from home? Is the network bandwidth, is it appropriate? Do we have the right tools? Are they secure? Never envisioning really, what those gaps might be. And many, many other things, but you really have to take a conscious look at what's real and who you are, strengths and weaknesses, and what business, you could ultimately be in. And then last but not least, and this is really universal to all business, right? This is what we normally go through these talks and focus on, is the execution layer, right? That's what are we doing today? What are we doing tomorrow? What's our strategy to ultimately get the profit in the business that we're looking for? That's goals, that's constraints, metrics, customers, marketing, sales. But those things have all been turned sideways, right? So initially, coping, figuring out how to get through what's in front of us today, figuring out how to keep people engaged, figuring out how to keep our customers engaged in a very dynamic and variable environment. Then as a result of that coping strategy, How do you pivot? What did you learn? What are some additional things that you need to add into your portfolio of tools? And then execution. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
All right. So what we'd like to do is really talk about critical constraints today. Some of you may have heard this definition theory before. What we're really trying to do is take this lesson and apply it to what's happening right now in our businesses and even in our lives. So first, let's talk about the definition. In every business process, there's a limiting factor which determines how fast any task gets done. So that limiting factor is a constraint, if you're not familiar with the word. So really we're talking about the roadblock, the thing that's getting in your way, a choke point, a bottleneck in your business. It could also apply to your life. So how do you resolve that and increase the speed at which you're getting things done or becoming successful or getting out of the position that you're in right now? First, you want to have a identify a goal clearly. You want to identify the one factor that's limiting your speed to get to where you want to be. And then you want to focus all of your time and your energy on that one thing that you find being the most critical constraint, roadblock, bottleneck in your business, and focus and concentrate on that. So the critical constraint, as most of you may know that have been in a class with us before, we talk a lot about it. 80% of the time, our critical constraints are internal, meaning we're getting in our own way. We're holding ourselves back. What we realize today is that 20% of the time that it's external right now is heavy. It's super heavy. So that 20% is really, really getting in the way right now. So Dennis, do you want to talk about how that really relates to what we're doing right now?
Yeah. So as an example in the medical industry, right, a critical constraint behind telehealth happened to be HIPAA compliance, right? Being able to do work over the wire, right? That was absolutely a critical constraint, but it didn't really represent a huge constraint because, well, people could come into the office. People could come and get therapy or get counseling inside the office. That stopped, right? Governor Abbott here in Texas, he relaxed the requirement. One of my clients, she pivoted very quickly and took advantage of that, and she was fully enabled. But her team wasn't trained. They had never done telehealth. So her next critical constraint, which was not something she had ever thought of before, is how do I get these counselors fluent in technology? How do I get them fluent enough that not only can they apply the knowledge and skills and experience from a counselor's perspective to help people through this crisis or help people through, a pre-existing condition, how do they continue to help them while juggling and balancing this technology challenge that they had? And another critical constraint was, where are they going to work from? They've got kids now at home, and there are still privacy rules. You have to find a spot within the house that's not going to compromise the confidentiality of that particular client. But what she had to do was successively, once one constraint went away, which was external, I can no longer bring to the office, then there was a series of internal constraints. There were those things that she could control and needed to progressively work through each and every one of those. So, and you'll hear this maybe later in the presentation, but the question that often gets us past that roadblock, once we get around that external constraint, that thing that we don't have control over, is you ask the question, I know you can't, right? So in some of my sessions, well, we simply can't do that because the staff isn't trained. We can't do that because there's not a private area within the house. We can't do that because the logistics trying to having kids and families at home and performing counseling, that just won't work. But the question that kind of gets us over that roadblock is, I know you can't, but if you could, how would you do it? And sometimes it takes a few minutes, right, to actually think through that. Well, what do you mean? I already said I can't. I get it. But if you could, how would you do it? And you keep running that question through, and all of a sudden you start to think of ways. Well, gosh, if I had to, I would get everyone on the phone and train them. Oh, I could write this up. Maybe I could call my IT friend who set this up and trained me. Maybe he could give a training session. Maybe he could do like an email and get the initial setup. Oh, and it starts to break down barriers, right? So to get through those critical constraints, because times have changed, they're different today than they were yesterday. But ultimately what we found, even in this environment, the external constraint, although heavy, was not the biggest limiting factor, right? So once you get past it, you got to power through.
Yeah, that's right. So the lesson here being, although you look at that 80% and see that it says internal, and we all know that we're being kind of driven by that 20% external, we still have a lot of things that we can control internally. So let's talk about the law of complexity.
Yeah, so this one's one of my favorites. So this law of complexity, what it says ultimately is that with every step in a process, the complexity level increases by the square of the number of steps in that process. So if you have one step, it's 1 squared. If you have 2 steps, it's 2 squared. So it's not the complexity goes up by the number of steps, it's actually squared. So I'm not supposed to touch buttons.
I told you not to touch it.
The C is the cost, right? So delays, mistakes, that S squared, the number of steps that you have in a process, that costs us time, which costs us money. It costs us delays. It drives variability into a process, and ultimately, results in customer dissatisfaction. So what this all means, it's the potential increase in cost.
It's the Stetzel struggle, just so you guys know. It's all okay. The controller button, just so everyone knows, I'm going to break in here. The controller button is not working, and my wonderful partner here is usually in control of the slides, and he can't be today because it's not working.
This is missing my crutch. So, the question to ask.
What?
Button.
Oh.
Click.
Click.
Which steps are absolutely needed and why? So I'll pause here for a second, and it would be great to get some audience interaction, right? Because we don't have employees in the office now, and because we've sent people home, or because they can't work in the traditional sense, or unfortunately, we've had to lay some people off because we simply can't afford them at the moment. It's forcing a lot of businesses to think about what are those steps, what is absolutely necessary, and then ask the follow-up question, well, I said it was absolutely necessary, but why?
Yeah, so the question here is, and if you're in the participant window, you can raise your hand or give a thumbs up. How many of you have already realized that you have some really complex systems in place and you need to work on simplifying those? So anybody want to raise your hand
or come off mute and chime in and talk through it?
You guys figured out how to use the button yet? So if you're looking for the participant window button, it's in the middle of the bottom of your screen. It says participants. You can bring that up, and then it'll give you an area where you can do a hand up. I know you can do it. Anyone?
I'm willing to talk about mine if no one else is.
Okay, go for it, Jimmy.
So one of my things I definitely like to do is I take a very simple process and make it extremely complicated. I don't know why, it's just something I like to do apparently. So one thing, for example, is that especially in banking, is that we have steps that are involved in collecting data, and then we send it to underwriting. Underwriting sends it back to us, and then I send it to my assistant. My assistant sends it back to me, and then I send it to loan ops. So we got a lot of back and forth inside the process. And I see that that's the limiting factor is that the time grows exponentially, because every time it touches someone's hands, we're talking about 3 or 4 days, right? So if it's going back and forth that much, we're talking normally what would be a 30 to 45 day process could take up to 60 days. So I've been working on trying to, ratchet down that process and get rid of the absolutely not unnecessary part. And one of the things that I started doing was creating template letters, so I could put that load onto the client on the front end, make sure we receive all the documentation, and then the clock starts ticking from that point. And once I receive all the documentation, what I found out is that I don't have to touch it in between. So it goes from the credit analyst directly to my assistant, directly to loan ops, rather than coming back to me at every point missing documentation. So in my instance, that's something I've been working on personally.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing, Jimmy. Does anyone else want to chime in? We've got time for someone else to give an example.
Okay.
Hold on, somebody came
This
on.
is Rob, and I just wanted to say that some of the things that I took for granted that I never realized were complex now are very complex when we're all working remotely, and decision making, even setting up a schedule for a team meeting or whatever, everything just takes so much more time. Still working to figure out what the best way to do it is. I mean, I try calling, you try email, you try text, we use Zoom meetings and all of that. But getting everybody to agree on a time is really been difficult.
Yeah.
It is, absolutely. And, those things that we didn't think were so complex when we were in the office, for those of us who had an office, right? You could just reach out and touch somebody and say, hey, we need to have a meeting, have now become very time consuming to try and figure out, how do you get everyone together? And we're all working on that, right? I mean, even we had some technology problems this morning. It just happens. And we work through them. And, the neat thing right now, Rob, is we're all forgiving each other for having these complex issues, right? We're in a time right now where we're all learning together and we're all willing to help teach each other. So one of the things that Dennis and I are going to offer at the end of this is a 30-minute, and we're calling it a business booster call. It's just 30 minutes with us to talk about, what do you need right now? Is there something that we can help you with? And even if it's something like getting groups together or having an online staff meeting or using a tool, those are things that Dennis and I are willing to help with.
Share some examples of what we're seeing, what we've heard, or make a connection with somebody who's dealing with the exact same thing and has overcome it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it is an opportunity, and it's important to say, don't lose that opportunity, right? The efficiencies and the elimination of those steps in these process. I mean, even just, setting a meeting, imagine how powerful once we're through this, down the road, if you take that same discipline, if you take that same process and it's no longer complex, getting a meeting together is no longer, what you learned, you've now established new norms. Imagine the time that you get back.
Yeah,
right?
and Jimmy, those templates that you created, right? Those are going to save you tons of time down the road.
So the next topic, related but slightly different, is the cycle of dependency.
So the cycle of dependency is more about being dependent on a particular person in the organization. So the first question is, if we were to remove a team member, who would be capable of execution? Many of you have already felt this. It would be you, the owner, the leader, the boss. And when a business owner or a leader believes they can do it better, whatever that is, or maybe they have to do it better, of course your performance suffers and the culture suffers with your team. So some of you may have already had to let team members go. I've talked to several businesses that have already had to let some office staff go. And so that duty, right, now falls to someone else. Are they capable of doing that work? Did you have a system in place so that if you remove that person, that the new person or even you can now do it? So just anybody raise your hand either on the video or in the participant window. Has anybody had to move a particular task, if you will, or system to a new person and you didn't actually have anything written down, so you kind of had to ad lib and build something? Has anyone had that happen in their business? You guys are a quiet bunch. Who's on here? Philip, I see you.
Philip's waving.
I see you, Philip.
Yeah, I pretty much cut my staff down to just me.
Okay, so David, now you're the owner, operator, telephone answerer, you're the guy.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you did that, did you find that some of the things that your staff was doing, you didn't necessarily know 100% on how to get it done? So you've kind of had to spin your wheels, kind of stepping back to create those processes?
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I completely understand. We have a lot of people in that position. Even in my pet care business has taken an enormous hit in this, because obviously people are at home and they don't need our service, although it is deemed one of the essential businesses, because we're caring for live animals for people who are in essential businesses. But you know, my office staff is doing work that I haven't done in 10 years. And when the time comes, or if the time comes for me to take over that work, I'm going to have to go back and figure out how to do that. Right. So I got caught too. I mean, we don't know everything. And we're learning as we go along too in this crisis mode. Gosh, who would have thought that we would be in this position in a matter of 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I miss some buttons? All right, so what we really need to think about is, do we have the right people, and are the right people in the right places? If you're doing it solo, I get it. You don't have a choice in this space. But if you have a team member, or maybe you've had to lighten your staff, think about who you're giving those tasks to, who you're allowing to work those systems, and are they the right people working on the right systems? Sometimes, and again, right now, we don't always have those choices, but those are the questions that you really need to keep in mind as you shift work. Right.
One more.
One more.
So who else contributes to it? These are your subject matter experts, your professional switchboard operators, right? These are the people who you depend on. A lot of times we depend on them to do one thing or another, and we're solely dependent on it. So here's where the opportunity is. In this lull, look and try to figure out who are you dependent upon? Who within the organization is the only person who can do it? Or who is the person that not only are we dependent upon, but because we're dependent upon them, the process is more complex. Mm-hmm. They're always sitting in line for an approval. They're always sitting in line for some sort of fact checking. They're always sitting in line to apply that rivet, whatever that might be. Is now a time to be able to break that cycle of dependency and provide cross-training, and maybe loosen some of that subject matter expertise, loosen that up, and allow them to do bigger, better, broader things as part of your pivot strategy. I mean, what if you could take your subject matter expert, the guy or the gal who, you say, this place would fall apart if Trisha wasn't here, right? Can we take some dependency and improve our processes and drive out the complexity, so that when that pivot strategy comes to fruition, I can leverage Trisha in a much broader way than just going back to popping rivets, right? She's the best rivet popper that I know, and we all depend on her to get product out the door. But can I leverage her in a different way? And I think that's where the opportunity is right now.
Yeah, and one of the conversations that I've been having, I know, and we discussed it last night, is there are a lot of business owners, not the ones that are here. Thank you for being hard at work as you normally would be, but a lot of people I've been talking to have just taken a vacation for the last 3 weeks, when they probably could have been spending a lot of time thinking about the things that they could put in place, right? With this extra time on our hands, these are the kinds of things that we could work on now, because guess what? When we get to the end of this, and no one knows when that is, it could be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months from now, when it turns around, we better be ready to take on a whole lot of new business. And right now is the time that we should be working on that, which I think leads into the next.
It does. So the law of self-control. This one's huge. So go ahead. So the law of self-control talks about our experiences. Everything that we do, our experiences in business, our experience in our personal life, our experience driving to work, our experience going to the store, the experiences that we have, what they do, those experiences drive our beliefs. The beliefs that we have drive our actions. So let's take that as an example. My experience is that on Sunday, I get up, we go have coffee.
It's true.
We go to the grocery store. we buy our vegetables and whatever those consumables are, and we're good for the week. So because we believe that that's the right thing to do. It fits into our schedule, and it works for us. And so our actions, drive what is ultimately our results. Those results have been every week we have groceries, we have consumables, and that works. Unfortunately, the experience over the last couple of weeks is not, it's not consistent, and we're not getting the results that we're looking for. So we've had to change that based on our experiences, right? Next click.
Sorry, I'm not very good at being a clicker.
And here's the thing, right? We look, as human beings, we look for evidence to prove that our beliefs are correct, right? Because they're based on all of our experiences. I believe that I should be able to go to the store every Sunday and get my groceries because my experiences say so. And I'm going to look for evidence to prove that this new schema, this new way of grocery shopping, doing it in small bundles, not stockpiling, not buying more than we actually need for a short period of time, right? My experience don't dictate that. My experiences dictate that I do simply week to week. You need to change those beliefs, right? Because our experiences are different. And in our business, it's the same, right? What we achieved results from, the actions that we were taking on a daily basis drove a set of results. Those results are going to be inconsistent with the new experience, right? So we need to break down that experience pattern and be open to an entire new world of different experiences. But keep in mind that your brain that wants to always go back to what's comfortable, your mind that always wants to be in that zone where things are familiar, those experiences are going to change. And so the law of self-control here being that we're looking for evidence, always looking for evidence to prove that our beliefs are correct, is going to have to change. And that's more so, this is a concept that applies in, regular execution-based everyday business, but even more so today, we may believe that we've gotten fantastic results by knocking on doors and going door to door. Can't do that anymore. And when this changes, when the new world comes around and we now have a new way of working, even if it's short term, we're going to have to adjust our actions in order to get the same results.
Yeah, and just by a show of hands, how many of you think it's going to be different when we come out of this? The way we interact with each other, the technology that we use, all of those things. How many of you think that things are going to be way different when we get to the backside of this? Yeah. The answer is yes, it is going to be different. When we talk about getting back to normal, it's going to be the new normal. It's going to be much different than it is today, and we will be using technology more. When you think about the use of the telemeds that's going on right now, dermatology appointments, dentist appointments, doctor's appointments, eye doctor appointments, they're all being done over the telephone. Do you think that the doctors and dentists and optometrists are going to go back to having people come into the office and filing them through for a preliminary check is going to happen? Probably not, right? They can see 10 times more clients if they telemed, right? So those are the things that I think we're going to see on the back end of this. I'm not a mind reader, but I'm pretty sure things are going to be different. So as we circle back around to talking about 80% internal, and the things that are holding you back are usually you getting into your own way. You think about coping, pivoting, and executing against that 20% that is so heavy right now. I can't because, and I won't because.
I shouldn't have to.
And I continue to blame it on the 20% that's external. It's not the thing that's holding you back. Most of those things that are holding you all the way back are internal. They're 80% you're getting in your own way. And you may have to come out of this with an entirely new business, right? I mean, so I used to do, let's say today I'm doing pet sitting and dog walking. I may come out of this doing pet taxi. I don't know what that looks like, but it can be different. It may not be the same business that I'm in today. Those are the things we should be thinking about right now, right? The ideas and the internal roadblocks that we're putting to ourselves. So go ahead.
Yeah, so, and maybe a little interaction here, just whoever wants to chime in. Who is familiar with the company CEMEX? CEMEX.
David is.
Okay.
All right, David, come off of mute. You
I'm
are.
off.
Okay,
Okay,
let's
so
talk.
what do they do?
From my understanding, for them, they're a Mexican-based company. They do a lot of cement supply, big plants that provide the raw materials for cement.
Okay, yep. And that's how most people would describe them, right?
And they do that.
And they do that. They happen to do that. But you know what they really are? They are an amazingly efficient distribution company. They just happen to distribute concrete, cement, and aggregates. They don't, cement and aggregates is kind of a sideline. What they really take pride in and what their claim to fame is, and what they really, really dive in on, and why they've been so successful in acquisitions and global kind of almost dominance in certain markets, is because their distribution system is amazing, right? And they actually hold classes. They actually bring people in that want to study their distribution system because of the way that they execute, right? Has nothing to do with the fact that it's cement, aggregates, and rock. In fact, the margin on concrete, the margin on aggregates, the margin on cement is minimal. So they have to be very, very close to the wire. And so if you talk to their CEO, Fernando Gonzalez, who I did work with, he'll tell you, I'm a distribution company. I just happen to put cement, aggregates, and concrete into my distribution system. And that whole, we talked earlier about, if you can't, I know you can't, but if you could, how would you do it? His approach is slightly different, but it's called the 5 whys, but he takes it to 7. Whenever there's an exception, whenever there's a failure, whenever somebody says we can't do that, what Fernando will take people through is 7 whys. He'll ask them why. They give the answer, and he asks why again. And typically what you find, well, all the time is what you find is that initial why. I cannot deliver counseling to medical patients sitting at their home. Why? Because the laws and regulations say I can't. Got it, that's gone. What's next? Why? My people aren't trained, okay? Why aren't you people trained? Well, we've never gone to deliver the training. Well, why haven't you? Well, because it was never something that was available to us, right? And you walk through those 5 whys, and you consciously, like ad nauseum, go through that cycle, that conscious cycle of, well, why can't I? Why is that true? Why do I believe that that's true?
Well, and you'll find too, as you go through those whys, 20% of it may be external, but 80% of it is internal, right? So
Yeah.
One of those things, the law, right, is definitely an external thing that they would have to get past.
And Fernando would be the first to tell you that 80% of all problems are held within the 4 walls of his organization. He does not believe that he can't solve anything internally. In fact, they're so big, he sometimes believes that he can influence, some of those external factors as well. But that's because of where they are in the market.
Okay. So you guys have been super quiet. Now we're going to make you come off mute. Do you think it's safe for me to put it in gallery mode?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put you guys in gallery mode so that you can all see each other. So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see everybody's pretty face. And if you guys would come off mute, so I'll start the conversation with this question. What has become more clear? And I know everybody's brain is mucked up with all of the things that are going on in the world right now, but what has become more clear since we started this call at 11:30 till right now? So we've been on the call for 45 minutes. What has become more clear? Anybody? Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, what's become more clear is the internal struggle. The 80-20 principle, and applying that to internal and external, and how they interact with each other, and how you mentioning at the end that CEMEX, the guy believes that he can basically influence the external based on working on his internal, and that's something I've been personally working on, which is being the cause of the matter rather than being the effect of the matter. And that really resonates with me. So
Yeah,
what I've been
that's
working.
great. Thank you for sharing, Jimmy. David,
Yes.
what's become more clear for you?
You know, honestly, I can't put my finger on any one thing.
Okay. There's a lot going on right now, and I get it. Yeah, sometimes we just don't have that clear statement yet, you know, and where we want to go, because we do have so many things going on right now. And I would just suggest, you know, you look at your notes today and make a list and figure out what's the top priority for today. Do you have, I mean,
I think some other people came up.
I know, I just meant for David. I was just saying for him to kind of get more clear on things that we talked about today.
It's that inventory of what's immediately in the way, right? And it could be something as simple as, you know, your wake up time. It could be something as simple as turning off time, or balancing between struggling with, you know, logistics and just clearing your head.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Douglas.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good. Welcome.
I'm pretty good.
Good.
Thanks.
So I don't know if you've been on since the beginning or.
I have.
Okay, wonderful. So what's become more clear for you since we started?
I have to look at simplifying processes because they're way too complex. And in transitioning everybody to working from home, it has become beyond a choke point. It has created delays that add days or weeks to the product outcome.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I was actually speaking to someone yesterday, an attorney. You guys may have seen the live interview. It was Aaron Callahan and I were talking about what can you be doing right now, because there's some, again, legalese behind not being able to get to someone to do the notary process and all of that, but what can you be doing right now? I get that you can't go into someone's home. I get that you can't get them into your office, but what is the work that you could be doing today and simplifying to get ready for when we get back to our new normal, or when we get to our new normal, not back to? Does anybody else want to? Go ahead.
Well, this is an opportunity for me, at least, to simplify things to the degree that people don't need to come in almost at all. I was already set up to handle business in that fashion. Okay. But the internal processes of once somebody comes in or reaches out to us are so disorganized, kludgy, that in fact, the next thing I'm doing is looking at an intake document that's live that people can complete themselves. As Jimmy was saying, you know, if you can drive the client into completing that intake information more completely, then it takes many manual steps out, asking them for things going forward. But I'm also on the cusp of an absolute explosion of business, because everyone who wants this government emergency funding has to have a 2018 or 19 tax return in. And if they've had changes since their last filing, they need to get their 19 return in right now. So
I love that, Douglas. So you're ready. You're getting ready for an explosion of business. So for those of you who don't know Douglas, he's your tax guy. He's a lot of people's tax guy. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Anybody else? So Amy, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know you and I were having a discussion yesterday about some of the things that you've been doing with even, you know, starting to coach inside of a Facebook group or something like that. So what are kind of the changes that you've been seeing in your business, and tell everybody what you do?
Sure. So I'm a nutritionist. I typically see clients in person, but I have always done a little bit of telehealth as well. So of course now everything's moving in that direction. So for me now it's kind of how can I broaden how I'm serving people? So instead of just focusing in on the one-to-one, I'm putting some group coaching packages together that also cuts down on the cost a little bit for people who are in a financial situation, so that helps with the cost, but also gives them the same level of service. And then I have a Facebook group already for my business. So what I'm going to be doing in there is actually doing a weekly free coaching for anybody who's in the group. Just get on a call live with them for an hour every week. They can ask questions, they can get some feedback, they can get some support provided, so that they feel supported during this time. And then if it feels right to them, they could always come in to work with me in a one-on-one situation or into a larger group program. So for me right now, it's just kind of, there's so many ways I could serve. So it's kind of cutting through some of that and really deciding what's going to be the most effective and what the need really is for people. What's the best way that I can support and serve right now?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I love. I was going to say that, you know, and giving back to the community that way. You know, we're all going to emerge from this. I see on Facebook a lot people like starting wine clubs and talking about, you know, put on your jeans every once in a while because pajamas is not a good gauge of your health, right? So that's absolutely needed. And a rising tide, you know, rises all ships, right? If we're giving back, other people are going to give back as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and one of the first things that we immediately did was not cancel, right? And we just decided to figure out this technology thing, and we turned all of our stuff to free live Zoom events so that we could support the community. And that was our way of trying to give back to the business community. So, and I know, and Jim, I don't know if this is a good opportunity for maybe you to talk about how you're supporting business owners by getting information out there and in front of them about, you know, SBA things that are out there that people can apply for, and just being the information guy, right? And communicating with the business community.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's the best way I can serve the community, is getting that information out and being, I mean, there's so much crap out there. Let me just say, there's a lot of crap out there, and there's no need for me to be their doom and gloom. You guys need something that's going to help pull this together and give you a place to stand and know that there is hope out there and what's going on. And with my background in investment, real estate, and banking, I'm able to give you a lot of information that is coming down the pipe from the banking end. So I'm 100% there to support you guys in that. This is information that's coming directly from the SBA or from landlords and other people that I know. And this is the way I give back. And I'm very happy to be able to do that.
Thank you, Jimmy. Anybody else want to offer? All right, so
I saw a raised hand. I thought it was Diana. I thought Diana did.
Duana. Yes, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Talk to us.
So I guess one of the things that I'm taking away is 80% of the internal business constraints are 80% me.
Yes,
so to be in charge, I have to take leadership. Yeah. So some stuff that's, you know, I'm putting out there is, you know, I'm going to start on my Facebook. You know, ask me the one legal question that's at the top of your mind right now, and I'll, you know, try to find the answers. Also getting information out to business owners. So if anybody has less than 500 employees, there's some major laws that have just come out, and can open you up to some penalties if you don't follow the law for emergency sick pay and then emergency expansion of the Family Medical Leave Act. And so we've got a lot of people that are laying people off, and there could be some penalties for that as well, layoff instead of a furlough. So there's some things that need to be done to protect businesses out there. I'm going to digital mediation so that we can keep cases moving, because I think we're going to have a huge run on the courts when this is all over. There's also some misinformation. Courts are not closed. They are still open. They are still conducting hearings. It's just not in person. They're switching to videos. We're doing a lot of stuff by affidavits, depositions by written questions. So there's different things that are being done with the court so that cases can move on. Digital mediation so that the case can be settled, and we can just, a lot of courts have gone to being able to just submit the information to the court via an affidavit.
Yeah,
so there's
I love that. So
all kinds of things that are moving these cases through the courts. Courts are also still prioritizing protective orders, that sort of thing. So I think we're going to see an upswing in domestic violence cases, with everybody being, you know, stressed and in the same household together. So big thing for me is just don't wait until this is all over to protect yourself in many different ways.
Yeah, thank you for contributing. And Dwayne, you and I should have a conversation. I've been trying to do a live Facebook event with my BNI referral partners. And I know that you're in a BNI chapter outside of mine, but I would love to extend that offer to you so that we can talk about some of those things on Facebook Live.
I would love to.
And chat later. Okay. All right.
Any others?
No, but you had a really good suggestion. Okay, so my partner over here decided that we should pause for a minute.
Yeah, so we've got some extra time. Normally, we pulled some content out because this is a new format, new forum. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk through? Any other topic? I mean, you've got a bunch of people on here from a lot of different industries. Anything that you want to float before we call it a wrap and bring it to a close?
David?
You know, this isn't necessarily a specific question that you've asked or anything, but you know, we were cranking along right till about mid-month, and that's when it really seemed like the talk went from being about the rest of America to being about right here. Yeah. And it's then, you know, all the rodeo got shut down, all the golf tournaments that were going on, everything just got canceled. And you know, we're a marketing company that offers advertising and promotional items, you know, for people to get their brand out there. And it all just came to a screeching halt. And you know, a few critically important businesses that are staying open or still functioning, you know, there's some opportunity to do a few signs here and there, which is great. It brings revenue. It doesn't compare anything close to, you know, doing 1,000 flyers or a booth setup or any of this kind of stuff. And it's just, I've only been doing this particular business for a year and a half, and it's, you know, you take something that is unprecedented for everybody, and then add on top of that that the time in the business is only about a year and a half. I'm just deer in the headlights. Is like, what the hell do I do here? You know?
Yeah, and people are scared, and we don't know what it looks like on the other end. And I would say to you, David, you know, concentrate on the things that you can control. Concentrate on the things that are within your limits, your boundaries. And it may be, you know, going back to zero-based thinking. I think you've been in one of our group sessions where we talked about that, you know, and starting from ground zero, what does that look like? What could you do in your printing business today for those businesses that are still in business, right, and are booming? We're talking about grocery stores and construction and all of those types of businesses. And how do you start building relationships with them? It's going to be different. You're not going to be able to go shake their hand, but getting into that community and making those relationships.
One of the, and it's tough where you're at, right? One technique that I would say is because I don't think any of us in that, you know, even if we did the next 30 minutes, would be able to come up with kind of the groundbreaking ideas that would get you over this particular hump, right, that you're dealing with right now. But mindstorming, right? Yeah. Get a group together, dedicate like a full hour, and just from a diverse, I mean, you've got a diverse set of people here or within your network or within Toastmasters or within the chamber, organize a Zoom call and have them help you, you know, walk through that. Like, there are a few little tiny ideas, and I don't know if they're stupid or not or whether they would apply, but it's worth spending that time and saying, okay, guys, I can't sell flyers. Everything's shut down. So help me with how. If I could, how would I do that? And just start floating out ideas. And Brian would tell you that the best ideas are the ones that show up minute number 59 or minute number 60. It's when you tap into, and this is going to kind of, is Chelsea on? It's not.
No, she's not.
Chelsea likes to use woo-woo, right? It sounds kind of woo-woo, but it takes that constant focus for you to tap into that super conscious, right? It's not gonna take traditional thinking. Traditional thinking is not gonna go sell flyers. It's not gonna bring the rodeo. It's not gonna get people buying t-shirts. But that creative, you know, what took Cemex from being somebody that sold concrete aggregates and cement to believing that they're a distribution company, right? That wasn't traditional thinking. That was a lot of mind storming, a lot of effort, and a lot of super conscious minds coming together and leveraging that power to say, well, that's something that's different. Maybe I could. They think about GM. GM's probably not selling a whole lot of cars, but they're making ventilators. Who would have thunk it? If you would have went to the CEO of General Motors and said, you ever think about medical supplies? The margins in those suck. How am I going to turn my factory into a medical supply company? And I don't think that came from one person or two people or five people just kind of contributing. That came from some people sitting in a room overnight figuring out how the heck to solve this problem, right? So that'd be my just kind of off the cuff suggestion is get some people together, dedicate some time, do a mind storming session, just pose that question and get the collective super conscious working to different people. And I imagine you'd come up with some ideas.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, David, for being vulnerable and talking about that.
David, will you allow me to say something? Can I say something to you?
Jimmy.
Yeah, I realize you're in a funk, David, and I understand completely because I was in that funk when I was going through therapy. But I think there are some real great ideas right in front of you. If you look right behind Tricia and them, that signage right behind them is something you could provide to all these people that are doing these Zoom calls. And I'm willing to sit down with you and no, I'm here for you to, if you want to bounce ideas on me, let's sit down and let's go over this stuff because they're all right in front of you right now. You just can't see them. So.
Yeah, and that's why mind storming works, right? Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like right behind us. So if this wasn't here, behind us is a wall that has a globe on it. It's a normal background, but that gets kind of boring.
Well, and no one wants to see that right now.
No.
Because it's all over the internet with red dots all over it. No one wants to see that. So on a lighter side.
Oh. Anyone else?
Oh, no. That was Doug. He was in the chat. Thanks, Doug. All right. Door prize. Can we do that before we go to the next slide? Okay, cool. So we do have a couple more slides for you guys, but I'm going to do a door prize first. $10 Amazon gift card that I will deliver to you via email. Milagros, I see you're on. I don't see your face, but you won. Here it is. All right. And I have your email address, so I'll send it to you. Did you come off mute?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. We're glad that you were here with us today. And you guys, please know, if you register for these events, we'll send you a link to the recording. So even if you register and something happens and you can't be on the whole time, we will still send you the recording. So I'm going to share my screen again because we have a couple more things that we want to show you guys. And then we will have the other two door prizes and go from there. Go ahead, Rob. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, David and possibly for everybody else. You know, the SBA is offering economic injury disaster loans. And these are directly from the SBA. And it's like a 30-year loan at 3.75%. And it covers, it's basically a working capital loan. If your business is struggling, you need to look into that. Now, I work for the Small Business Development Center at San Jacinto College. And we have people calling us all the time asking us about the EIDLs, Economic Injury Disaster Loans. Now, the new law that hopefully the House will pass today will create some additional opportunities for relief. So there's going to be a lot of money from the government that's going to start flowing. And, if you are struggling, look and see what is available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rob, very much for adding that to our discussion today. Very much appreciate it. Okay, so we want to let you guys know what we have going on moving forward. So this one's yours.
So everything that at this point, everything's virtual. So we didn't list on here the lunch and learn, the top it off. So all the normal, regular.
We're going to continue those
workshops, and we'll do them using this kind of forum, for the foreseeable future. Trisha's kicking off a business growth boot camp. It's virtual. It'll start April 1st. It's 90 days of kind of entrepreneurial growth kind of boot camp. We've updated the Clarity coaching program. Normally 5 weeks. We've added an additional week and tweaked some things to really focus on getting ready to pivot. So there's an additional strategy module in there, an additional week of strategy to help really make sure that strategy coming out of the pivot mode, that you're ready. So that one's been updated. And then of course we've got the Premier Coaching Program. So ultimately, just schedule something with us if you want to talk through any one or multiples of those.
Yeah.
But beyond that, our calendar links have been updated. If you just want to have a 30-minute, we're calling it a business booster call.
And there's no obligation. There's no shop talk, if you will. It's really about you and how we can help you guys. So whether you want to talk to me or Dennis, we don't see each other's calendars, so we won't, be mad if you pick one or the other. Because some people don't like me. I don't know why. Some people don't like it. That's not true. But we would love to talk to you guys and see how we can help you move forward or get ready, right, to pivot and get into the execution phase.
Yeah. So if there's any one of these topics or any other topic that you weren't real clear on or want to dive into a little bit deeper or anything, just the calendar is open, and we've segmented that time off for you as a give back. And
it's an open topic. So drum roll, we got another $10. You're good at that. It's a good thing you're not holding the controller. Who's in here? Rob Carlson. Woo! I'm gonna send you a $10. Oh, you write that on there so I don't forget.
Yep.
Okay, one more. I have a $20 gift certificate for you guys. The thing that I used to slice all of these up broke this morning. I had to use scissors. It was like those little lefty scissors with no points on them. I'm not very good at it. Is Kay on? I didn't see Kay. Kay Heil?
Nope.
I didn't see her. Okay, too bad. You have to be present to win. Sorry, Kay, if you're watching the replay. All right. Stuart? Stuart's not on. Okay, too bad. You need like 12 drum rolls. Sonia? We had a lot of people register that didn't make it today, but that's okay. We had a good group.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna find one. Philip Barrera.
Woohoo!
You never win.
Look,
you won.
Charlie Brown got the prize, and the big prize.
Where is he? I can't even see you. I'm looking for you.
I guess that proves.
There he is. Look, he's happy even.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Congratulations, Philip.
We love you, Philip.
Awesome.
Do you want to go to this?
No.
Okay. So thank you guys so much for being with us today. We actually have still like 20 minutes. If anybody wants to stay on, I'm going to stop sharing and go back to gallery mode. Dennis and I are absolutely 100% staying on until 1 o'clock. If anybody wants to stay and still have a chat, we can do that. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us.
One quick idea that I shared with Jimmy before all of you got on. It was a really cool experience. It was a way to break monotony and break the tension because we've been doing business continuity and all kinds of stuff. But the team got together yesterday. We used Zoom. It was 30 minutes. We had a virtual happy hour. Everyone brought their favorite cocktail, their beer, their wine, and it was actually a super cool 30 minutes. We just jumped on Zoom, put it in gallery mode, what we were drinking, whether it's alcohol based or not doesn't really matter, but it was a really cool way to just kind of bring the tension down and bring everybody back to the not news
and
mode
no shop talk.
No shop talk. So
let me tell you how I found out about this. I was down in the kitchen. I think I was getting my lunch or something. It's pretty early in the day. And he's over in the wine cabinet getting a bottle of wine. I'm like, what are you doing? We have happy hour. I'm like, with who? He's like, my team. I'm like, what team? and he's sneaking a bottle of wine. He wasn't sneaking, but he was getting a bottle of wine to bring up here. And I'm like, oh no, I'm still working. Like,
When
I
you-
would have a happy hour in the middle of the day.
And when you have a team that operates globally,
It's
it can
5
be
o'clock.
happy hour
somewhere.
anytime. So yeah, just and there's lots of ideas. You see that stuff floating around everywhere, but please, you know, whether it's with each other, whether it's with your friends or your team, stay connected and not in crisis mode, right? Break it down, decompress. That's super important, especially now.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys so much. We're going to stay on. I'm going to stop the recording. So anything that gets said after this won't be on the recording that we send out to folks. So thank you guys very much.